Okay, we are live. Jesse Krishna to everybody. Welcome to another Joy Academy's webinar. Today, we're going to talk about um, Mr. Dr. Dinesh Patel, entrepreneur, venture capitalist, and a lot more. To start off, I would like to welcome Mr. Raman Rama from Orlando, Florida. Roman Uncle has been a big supporter of Joy Academy since its inception. Roman Uncle is a successful hotelier for past 40 years. He's the president and chief technology and information officer for his for his hotels, Sarona Hotels. He has been past president of High Tech, which is Hospitality Industry Technology Exposition and Conference, and he has talked and given speeches about hotels and technology throughout the world. So, Roman Uncle, please take us through.
It gives me great pleasure and it's an honor to bring Joy Academy to you this afternoon, morning in some of the areas, and night in India, actually. Joy Academy was born when Dr. Pradeepai Kansagra retired from his practice in urology. And I wouldn't call it retired. He may have retired, but he was not tired of giving back to the community. So he came up with this idea of how we can bring together people from all over the world in different fields of expertise and have them share their experiences and answer some of the questions that we may have in different fields, whether it's medicine, whether it is entrepreneurship, whether it's investment, whether it is social life, and whatnot. And it brings great joy for us as our Leva Patidar Samaj to partner with Joy Academy, and all the other Samajis that are Gujarati Samajis have joined to support this initiative of education during COVID time when we are in our four walls and don't have much to do. And we have taken a lot of advantage of these sessions. And I've seen a lot of attendees also attend these sessions through Facebook, YouTube. They are recorded, they are saved for future viewing at a later time if you are not able to join live. So we encourage you to spread the news, go back and see that. At the same time, our main mission, Joy Academy, is not for profit. Sort of nobody except for Pradeep Bhai is sponsoring and paying for all the expenses. And it is such a gratifying experience. And it's his humility that shows up for him to bring this to us today. And from that standpoint, I would like to hand back over to Darshan just to give you an idea about more topic of the day today.
Yes, thank you, Roman Uncle. I would also like to thank all of our Joy Academy organizers. Sorry, I got disconnected there. So I would like to now welcome our co-host, Jay. And Jay is my cousin brother from Salt Lake City. He studied at Carnegie Mellon University. He's a data scientist or data engineer, but he is like a scientist. He's very creative. Yeah, he has started his own consulting IT firm, and he is helping Starship right now. It's a startup based out of New York. So, Jay, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Super excited to be here and talk about Dr. Dinesh Patel, his achievements, and what we can learn from him as well. To start out, there's a lot we need to cover, but one of the first things that I wanted to give kind of insight into is some of the awards that Dr. Dinesh Patel has actually been granted. So one of the big awards here in Utah that I'd like to talk about is the Utah Governor's Medal for Science and Technology Award. This is something that is given to Utah leaders that keep Utah at the forefront of technology innovations and ensure we have diverse economy that will weather any sort of economic storm. And we could see that especially during this COVID time, how leaders in Utah are keeping the economy here doing really well and up. So, Dr. Dinesh Patel was granted this award twice in 1996 and 2002. This is just one of the biggest achievements that he's also received. There's a lot more that we'll talk about soon. Another thing I'd really like to discuss is one of the first business successes that he's had. And Dr. Dinesh Patel launched Thera Tech Inc. in 1985. Within 7 years, he took the company public. Later, it was acquired for approximately $350 million in 1999 by Watson Pharmaceuticals. This deal was over $500 million if you put it in today's dollar amount. This is important to understand just to get an idea of scale. Also, now it's very common for pharmaceuticals and biotech companies to go public or be acquired, but at that time it was very rare for small companies to go public, especially companies founded here in the state of Utah, or companies founded and led by immigrants. So this is just kind of to put highlights on where Dr. Dinesh Bhai's journey begins. A lot more to come on this later. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Adding to Jay's presentation and talking more about Dr. Patel's achievements, he's also a venture capitalist. He has funded and co-funded lots of successful ventures. He has funded 25 early stage companies, and he has also his own 12 private equity venture capital funds. Dr. Patel is a board member in lots of institutes. Some of them are listed here is the Utah Technology Council, Utah Symphony since 2009, and also in Utah, the Leonardo, that aims to fuse science, technology, and arts to experience and inspire creativity and innovations. I would now like to, sorry. Okay. All right. I would now like Jay to get started with our question and answer session. Jay, please go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Dinesh Bhai, again, thank you so much for being here with us. One of the first questions we have is, where were you born and brought up? And, what did you want to do when you were growing up versus what is it that you're doing now?
Well, thank you for the introductions. I think I would like to start. I will answer your question just after in a minute. One of the questions that I get asked, and I've been asked most frequently, is how did we end up in Utah? Because Utah is not known to be a life science hub. And the first question they ask me is, did you go to University of Utah and then decide to stay in Utah? And I said, no. I went to University of Michigan. The next question is, are you a Mormon? And I said, no, I'm a Hindu trying to make the Mormons into Hindus. So, the reason why we ended up in Utah is I wanted to start my own company. And we were in Texas, and my professor from Michigan had moved to University of Utah. And he said, why don't you come to Utah and we can start a company together? So that's how we ended up in Salt Lake City. Now, going back to your question, I was born and raised in Broken Hill, Northern Rhodesia. Now it's called Kabwe, and the country is Zambia. In the early days, under the British rule, we were a segregated society. So all the Indian population stayed in one area, all the white people were in a different, and the black people were in different. Our high school was all Indian. And we actually went to the English medium school in the morning, and then in the afternoon, the Hindu Samaj taught us Gujarati. So we learned up to 5th standard Gujarati. So, can write and read a little bit, but of course not very proficient. So that's my childhood. Because Zambia, at that time, of course, we had really good time. Everybody did a lot of stuff. My goal was always to become an entrepreneur. I was thinking more about chemical industry as something I wanted to do. And in one way, that's what I'm doing right now.
That's really excellent. Thank you for that. And so then, when did you move to the United States, and kind of what actually brought you to the U.S.? Was it education? Was it something else?
So part of our education in Zambia, we get what is known as O-level. Our high school certificate is actually given by Cambridge University. And at that time, had two options. One was to take a government scholarship, apply for a government scholarship to go to study in England, and then come back and work in Zambia. But we decided that going to India for a few years might be a better option. So I went to India for my undergraduate education, and then came to the US in 1973 for my graduate studies.
That's very helpful. And where did you do your graduate studies? And is this where you met your professor as well, who then you later founded Theratech with?
So my master's was done at Philadelphia College of Pharmacy and Sciences, and then went to University of Michigan in 1975. So I did my PhD from University of Michigan under Professor Bill Higuchi, and he and I and another professor were founders of the company.
That's very exciting. No, this is great. And then I know you talked a little bit about Theratech and how you moved back into Salt Lake to continue working with the company. But what was that spirit or the inspiration? I know you also said you always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but what was that inspiration that you had that told you that you have to go start a business rather than working? And I'm sure at that time, working in chemical engineering or in pharmacy or biotech, it must have been very lucrative to always have a job. But what made you go start that company? What was that spirit, that inspiration? I think our audience would benefit a lot from learning about that.
So in 1978, after I got my PhD, I set a goal for myself, and this is one thing that all entrepreneurs have to do. If you're going to do something, you have to set a goal about something that you're passionate about. So in 1979, I set up a goal saying, I will start my own company by 1985. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I said, I'm going to start something in 1985. And I worked for two large pharmaceutical companies. And one of the things that is part of something that's interesting maybe is, when I was working for Alcon Labs in Fort Worth, Texas, that's an ophthalmic company, I was the manager of what is the drug delivery group. And they had hired Gene Cooper as my immediate supervisor. So Gene and I spent the whole day. Once he joined, he came in later. I was the manager of the group. He joined as the director. We spent a whole day. And then, end of the day, I said, Gene, I'm going to be with you for 2 years. Then I'm going to leave. I'm going to start my own company, and I want you to come with me. So this is my first day interview with my then boss. And he told me after 6 months, he said, it took a lot of guts for you not only to tell me you're going to quit, but asking me to go along with you. But that was because I had already decided 85 is my timeline. I'm going to do something. So that's how, come 1985, we moved to Salt Lake City. We only knew two people in the entire state, and that was my professor and his colleague. And that's all we knew.
That's awesome.
We just, and yes, like you said, the job at Alcon was very good. They were paying very well. The benefits were very good. In fact, my father said, "Why do you want to do this?" And I just said, "I don't want to work for somebody." And so that's how we moved here in '85.
Yeah, that's exceptional. And I'm gonna let Darshan Bhai ask some questions as well, but I definitely have more questions about about the plan and hardships at Theratech. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. That's exactly what I was going to ask. That's amazing to have that vision. So, could you please share with us what steps you took, and what was your vision and the process that helped you achieve your vision?
So, in 1985, like I said, I had set up that goal for starting a company 85. Once I started the company, my second goal was that I will grow Theratech to be a $100 million company by 1992. Now, this is when I was the only employee. I just started the company, but I set a goal saying, I want to make it into a $100 million company. The area that I focus on, drug delivery, was fairly new in that time. And just to give you a little bit of a background on that, the technology that was developed is to get the drug in the body at the right time for the right amount of period. So instead of taking 4 tablets a day, where most of the people will forget, that we developed patch technology that you can put it on your body, and for 3 or 4 years, you get the right amount of drug in your body. So it became very clear at that time that although this technology was fairly new, very few large pharma had that technology in-house. So I saw an opportunity for a company to be developed around that technology. And our goal was to become one of the best in that area. And so, again, in '85, when I moved here, I was the only employee, and the CEO, scientist, whatever, everything was one person. So that's how we started.
Thank you. What was the hardest thing about Theratech for you to start? Probably one of the first companies like this that broke that distribution issues, and how did you achieve that?
So obviously, raising money becomes a big issue. For a pharmaceutical product, from the time if it's a brand new chemical, it takes about 10 to 15 years before you can get it in the market, and it costs billions of dollars. What we were doing is taking an existing drug that's already used for something and putting it in a better format. And even for that, it takes 5 to 10 years, 70 to $100 million. So the big issue was obviously money. We started the company with $40,000, and our first investor was Pfizer. Pfizer put in $1.5 million in the company. Now, my first challenge was I had hired a senior person from GlaxoSmithKline, SmithKline Beecham, the big pharma company. And, we were negotiating with Pfizer for the investment. We told him that we have hired this great scientist. And then just a week before the deal with Pfizer was to be finalized, this guy quit And not only did he quit, he called me from New Jersey. He didn't even face me, called me from New Jersey and said, I'm quitting. And so here I am trying to negotiate with Pfizer for 1.5 million investment, and one of my key guys quit. So I called up, we had, my key contact at Pfizer. I told him that this is what has happened. If you don't want to invest, don't want to go forward with it, I completely understand, and it won't be an issue. Interestingly, within 48 hours of that call, I got 1.5 million in my bank. So I think it was the trust they had in me and my professor, Professor Higuchi, that these people will deliver on whatever they have promised. So that was my first major challenge. Fast forward a few years, and we had investments from several large pharma companies. We did not take venture capital or equity from other people. And we were in the middle of trying to sign up for a clinical trial, and clinical trials are where we spend a lot of money. And we had less than $1 million in the bank. The contract with the clinical company was going to be several $million. And so as a team, we sat down and said, what do we do? If we don't sign the contract, we would be delayed by 6 to 12 months getting into the clinical trial. So I told our Vice President for Clinical Affairs, just go ahead and sign it. It'll be my responsibility to raise the money. Now, in 6 months, if we don't have the money and we're bankrupt, what does it matter? But if we don't sign, we are behind a year. So I said, you go ahead and sign it. Let me worry about the money. I'll try and raise the money and be ready. And again, fortunately, some of our pharma backers came in with the money, and we were able to continue with the clinical trial.
Wow, that's amazing. Nowadays there are a lot of companies that are trying to start a business. Of course, the goals are and the visions they have. But back in those days, what guidelines did you use to? What was your business model that helped you achieve this?
So again, the business model was quite. Again, we wanted to be best. And one of the areas where there were very few experts was in what is called transdermal delivery, where you put a skin patch and the drug gets into your body. There were very few people who really knew that business. So that was my initial focus. And we knew that because there are only 2 or 3 competitors, we should be okay. The other thing that was, in one way, maybe lucky, but we selected testosterone as our model drug to take it across the skin. Now, at that time, the total market for hormone replacement in males using testosterone was only about 40 million. So the thought process was, if we take a drug that is small enough so the big companies don't get too concerned about, you're doing something in a market that's 40 million. They may not try and compete with you. Of course, today, if you know, the testosterone market is over $2 billion. And we were one of the pioneers in that space. And again, having the right drug at the right time made a big difference for us.
So that's amazing that you had that vision and you did your analysis, and then you figured out that this is the market that you want to go into with your competitions and stuff. So that's a great inspiration for youngsters. Nowadays, things are very competitive. What do you advise when someone like me who is trying to start a new company that we should do and study for?
So first, the most important thing has to be, you have to be passionate about whatever you are trying to do. Passion is number one. If you're not passionate, then it's quite likely that you will fail. The other thing is you have to stick to what you know. You cannot get into a brand new field and try and do something. So you really need to be a subject matter expert. Now, you're not going to know everything in what you're trying to do, but at least as long as you understand the space, you will do well. The other thing, and which is very important, is to surround yourself with good people. Your team has to be made up of people who are smarter than you. You know, one of the failures of a lot of small or family-owned business is you are surrounded by people who always just say yes to whatever you say, right? Because they want to just please you. You need to have people who will tell you, hey, you're full of it. This is not the way to go. Here's a better option. And you have to listen to that. And so again, having people who are smarter than you on your team is one of the key ingredients.
Thank you. Jay?
Yeah, this is just fantastic. I guess one more question about experiences that you've had at Theratech and things we've learned from there. There's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs on this call, and if you were to give although you shared a couple advices already, if you were to give two key pieces of advice just to summarize, what would that be for them? Because the example you gave about going 1 year late into clinical trials versus signing the contract for clinical trials now and then figuring out the money aspect of it. Some people would consider that too risky and they wouldn't do it. Although, I mean, as you mentioned, that is what really led the company to be competitive and on the forefront. So decisions like that, what else would you give in two advices to anyone in the audience who wants to have their own business?
Yeah, so if you're an entrepreneur, you know you are taking a risk, right? If you don't take risk, you're never going to go anywhere. So risk is something that you take, but and making mistakes is perfectly okay as long as you learn from that. But if you keep making the same mistakes and think you're going to make progress, of course it's not going to happen, right? Couple of things that any entrepreneur needs to keep in mind. You need to always work with a win-win philosophy. There are a lot of people who say, I'm going to win, but the other guy is going to lose. Well, in the end, both will end up losing, or the other guy will win and you will lose. So having a win-win philosophy is very important. And I would say one of the key ingredients also is integrity. Make sure that you are absolutely running a clean, honest business. Because integrity is something that, once you lose it, you're not going to get it back. And a small example that I can give you here, we had a very large contract with one of the major pharma companies. It was a multi-million-dollar contract. They sent us 50,000 additional by mistake. And we could have said nothing, and they wouldn't even have known about it. So I called up my contact and I said, by the way, you guys have sent 50,000 to us, which really should not come. What do you want? How do I send it back to you? And his answer was, for a big pharma company to figure out why that 50,000 ended up with you would cost us more than 50,000. So why don't you do an experiment that will be useful and part of the project? That way, we don't have to worry about that. So again, a good example of how I build trust with my contact, saying, okay, these guys are really honest. They're not going to take us for a ride. So integrity is critical.
Thank you. Uh, we also have just joined Mr. Biu Patel from California. He's our supporter for Joy Academy. Welcome. Ramananko, you can ask questions, please.
Hello. Uh, uh, Hello, everybody. I have no question. I want to listen first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dinesh Bhai, you say, I love to see young entrepreneurs full of ideas and it keeps you young. Can you please explain that?
So, part of my journey after, of course, Theratech was acquired, I started a venture capital firm, V-Spring Capital. We are managing 450 million. And part of that fund, we were doing both technology and life sciences. So I learned a lot about life sciences. Now I'm doing mostly angel investing, and that is investing small amounts in early ideas. And I find that really invigorating when I'm talking to young people, because their thought process is much different than mine, right? I have become now more cautious, more calculated. They're more free thinking. Their ideas are trying to break the barriers that I don't even know exist. But if I'm investing with them, if I'm advising them, I have to learn what they're doing. So when somebody like Jay comes to me with data analytics or any software kind of product, I may not know the mechanics of that software, but I really understand the business end, and I can tell them what they need to do or don't need to do. So working with them pushes my knowledge frontier, right? I have to learn a lot more as an advisor to them. So to me, that keeps me motivated and young.
So the other question is youngsters today are very creative, but they don't have funds to start their own business. What do you look for before you invest in a company?
Yeah, so the key point with any of the ideas is, are they addressing a real unmet need? Because there are a lot of good ideas, but they are not needed. I mean, it's good to have, but not must have kind of thing. So there are two things I look for. One is the idea has to be something that addresses an unmet need, and it has to be in an area that's big and growing. There are a lot of stuff that a person can make 100,000, 200,000, and it's a good business for that person, but it may not be an investment grade idea. So usually that's what I look. And then, of course, once the idea is good, to bring in a team that has done it before. Because if you don't have the experience in that space, uh, it's quite likely that you will not succeed. So when I invest in a startup that comes from the university, and particularly if it's led by a physician, there are a lot of physicians who want to start a company. So one of the first things, within a few months, we tell them that, okay, before you take my money, be aware that in few years you're going to be out of that job, because a professor's thinking is not what a company needs, right? A physician's thinking, most of them are practicing medicine, they don't know the business side. But as a founder, they want to control not only their idea, but their company. And so we have to tell them ahead of time, don't be shocked if you're fired. So that's, anyway, so that's the kind of stuff I look for. Mostly it's an idea that is addressing an unmet need.
So if I have an idea and if I want to start a business and I'm looking for investors, tell me what you would consider is the best way for me to pitch to an investor like you, and how I would be successful in convincing you that you need to invest with me in my startup.
Yeah, we
So
had a
most,
similar
yeah,
question. Sorry, a similar question from audience. I'm just gonna put it up here. That just what Raman Uncle asked, how a company should approach,
yeah,
uh, not a VC.
right. So it's actually very difficult to get money from the VC with a plain idea. So there is what now is a bigger source for funding than the venture capitalists are the angel investors. And if you see in every city, there is now an angel investment group. And who are angel investors? These are people who have been successful, who still want to do things, want to be hands-on on certain ideas. They will invest 25, 50,000 in a company. What do you need? Okay, to be an angel investor, and typically it's better to be in a group because you want to have people who understand what you are investing in. But as an angel investor, you have to be somebody that if you lose 25, 50,000, you don't worry about it. It doesn't, change your lifestyle. So you do have to have certain amount of money to get involved. And also, as a general rule, you have to invest in 10, 15 companies to be successful because statistically, half your companies will fail. I mean, there's just no question about it. Half of them are going to fail. But 25, 30% of the companies will bring you your money back. And it's that 10, 20%, which are home runs, that give you 2 to 3 times your entire investment. So the angel investment group is your initial source. And what we call the first round is usually the 3 F's. It's friends, family, and fools. If they invest in you, at least you get going, right? You have to have those 3 first. Then, once you have shown a proof of concept, you can go to a venture capitalist. And a VC usually requires a warm introduction. So, because I'm an entrepreneur, was a venture capitalist, and I have investment, and I'm invested in a lot of funds. If I recommend a company to one of my funds where I'm an investor, they will take a serious look. They may not fund you, but they will take a very serious look. To give you just an example, as when we were running VSpring Capital, we probably saw 200, 300 ideas per year, and we funded 3 to 5. So your odds of getting funded by VC, it's very difficult to get in there. And so if you have a really good, warm introduction, your chances improve dramatically. So another part of what an entrepreneur needs to do is network. You've got to network in your city, wherever you are. If there is an angel group, if there is a venture capital group, get to know those people. Because without a warm introduction, my secretary used to toss away 1/3 or half the business plans that came because they come over on your email. And by the time, after 1 or 2 years working with me, she knew what I'm going to look at, what I'm not going to look at. She doesn't even bother to have me look at it. It just goes in trash can. So that warm introduction and having that network makes a big difference.
So, who do you mentor and how should someone seek your mentorship? because that's what's burning in the young generation we have in United States, especially in our Samaj. There are a lot of youngsters that have parents that are in the business, but they are in a professional field, and these professional field youngsters need mentorship. And so how can somebody seek mentorship from you?
So before I talk about how they can approach me, one of the key organizations that has been started in the U.S. is the Thai organization, right? The
I
Indus
know.
Entrepreneurs, and Thai is all across the country.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons what Thai was started was for that very reason. If you go back in the 80s when they were started, there were very few successful Indian entrepreneurs. And, so how do you even mentor when you don't have a network of entrepreneurs who have been successful? So that was the origin of Thai. And Thai has been very good at entrepreneurship, right? I was one of the early charter members in Thai because I think, like I say, in 85, 90, there were hardly any Indian CEOs at that time, right? So I've been with Thai, and I get approached by people from that point of view. But most of my mentorship is with people in Utah, because to be an active mentor, you've got to meet one-on-one, you've got to see what they are doing. And I tend to take probably 1 to 2 meetings with people a month of new ideas. And if nothing else, if I guide them into the right direction, they feel that I've done my job. I mean, I don't charge anything, right? I just spend my time with them. But, I think that has been very helpful. And like I said, after I left BeSpring Capital, I've invested in about 25 companies. A lot of them come out of the university. We start with 25,000, 50,000. If that idea takes legs, then we try and raise the serious money from that.
That is very nice of you to contribute and to groom somebody at that young age. And I know they would appreciate very much when they grow older to say, here is Dinesh Bhai Patel who held my hand and guided me to where I am today. Hindsight, one thing that you would do different.
I think at one time there was a potential for us to merge with a smaller company. And the technology that they had was fairly simple. In a capsule, they put 4 different tablets, each one having a different profile of how much drug would be released in the body. And we thought, geez, this is such a simple thing. Who's going to do much with it? So we passed that opportunity. That product ended up being a multi-billion-dollar product. Now, it could have been a nice acquisition at that time. But again, becoming a little bit arrogant about our technology. We have superior technology. Why do we want to work with a simple technology? Was not the right decision. So you got to evaluate everything carefully and not, like they say, don't drink your own Kool-Aid and you think you got the best thing. I don't want to look at something simple.
So basically, you are saying don't discount anything that comes to you. Look at it with a fine grade.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
So, what do you like most?
So right now, because being active in the community, doing philanthropic work, and then working with the young, some of the young ideas, those we enjoy a lot. And I think, I don't know if you know, we run a charity hospital in Gujarat, and that has been very, very satisfying. Because when my father had that dream, we thought it's impossible to set up a a hospital in a village of 3,000 people. Today, that hospital delivers about 90 babies a month. First delivery is free for everybody. The second delivery, if they can afford, is 75 rupees. And we work very closely with University of Utah on the welfare of the babies. And a very satisfying project has been working with the low birth weight babies. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but India spends a lot of money, but it's all mismanaged. They have a program for babies that are low birth weight. The government spends a lot of money, but even today, 25% of those low birth babies die within 12 months. We have dropped that rate to about 1 to 2%. That's the maximum that you can do for them. But that is very gratifying to see the impact that has had on the local population. And of course, here in the US, we work quite actively with universities and locally in Salt Lake City with a lot of the arts and culture organizations.
What do you hate most?
Not doing anything.
So, how do you balance your?
To be busy. I like to.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I like to be busy. Let's put it that way.
I beg your pardon?
I like to be busy.
Okay.
Retirement is overrated.
That's true. So, how do you balance your professional business life with a social and family life? That has become a challenge of today's youth.
Yeah, I think again, when I was running Theratech, after 5 o'clock, I don't bring work home, right? I keep it separate from my private life, and maybe it's because of the business that I was in. There are things that cannot just happen overnight, right? There are issues that if you're dealing with the FDA, I cannot come home and if I give headache or worries to my wife, that is not going to help solve my problem. So I'd rather keep my problems at work, stay at home where Kalpana doesn't even know I have a major issue going on at company, because it doesn't help having two people getting worried about something that it's not under our control. And so I used to play a lot of tennis. I play golf now. So there is, I used to ski a lot also. So there has to be that work and life balance.
So, there is a young girl that I have known of that was very instrumental in your personal event. Can you give your experiences with Nini Desai, a very young, dynamic entrepreneur? How you felt dealing with her?
Well, so I guess you're talking about the wedding that we had in Salt Lake City. No, Nini was very professional, and the event still a lot of people view that wedding event on YouTube, and in Utah, a lot of people remember that event. And just as a side note, the governor, for the first time, I believe in the history of Utah, had an official proclamation on my daughter's wedding day as a Utah event, and the proclamation is in the state capitol. So Nini did a great job, and again, very professional. We might have been one of her biggest jobs at that time, because I think she was just starting out. She's of course very successful now.
No, the main reason I asked this question is there are a lot of young ladies, young entrepreneurs that want to do something. What did you see in her that you decided to do business with her?
So, to be very honest, my daughter selected, she did all the talking to different event planners, and she wanted to work with Nirji. And once we started with her, it was her details, the way she followed up with details. It's very difficult, or I don't think there are too many wedding planners who would come with you to India to make sure that you shop. Even the gifts that we gave, she was there. So she cared for her customers. She was detail oriented. And that made the difference. And I'm sure that has helped her interest in her clients, make sure that they're happy with what she's doing, has made her successful. So for me, any person that has the drive, that has the passion, I told the first thing, if you want to start a business, you got to be passionate about what you do. And Nijri is very passionate about what she's doing. So I think that was one of the things that we saw in her.
So I would now pass on the baton to Darshan and I'll come back again, but I want to have a break sort of.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate all your questions. We have Chandresh Bhai, who is the president of Gujarati Samaj in Utah. He's been very humble. He's on vacation in Hawaii, but he's joined in and would like to ask a question. Chandresh Bhai? Chandresh Bhai, can you hear us? I think he mentioned he is having technical difficulties and Wi-Fi there.
Okay.
But I would also like to bring up a question that one of our viewers has posted. Wanted to ask about giving back. He's saying that they think that once you want to give back, once you reach your goals, etc. But is there a different way to think about giving back?
So again, giving back has to be in an area, and you have to be passionate about your cause, right? A passion comes across everything, not only in entrepreneurship, but also in what you give back in. And if you're giving back to whatever cause you believe in, it will be because you enjoy what you're doing. It's not you're forced to do something. And it's always good to start with something that's very close to you. I think for people who are settled in the US, we have to give back to our community here also. I know everybody in most of the Indian people have to give back something in India. And I know we face this when we ask somebody, would you donate to, let's say, Gujarati Samaj or to the Ganesh temple? The first thing is, oh, but I'm giving back something in India, which is good. Keep doing it, but you got to give to your own community here. It is important to be involved locally in something that you're passionate about.
Thank you. Chandresh Bhai, yeah, you can ask your question.
Hey, sorry, I had a network connection problem here, but the question I have is, risk is kind of unavoidable in the business, right? Only thing you can do is mitigate it. How do you manage and mitigate the risk of starting a new business?
Yeah, so again, being an entrepreneur means you take a risk, but the risk has to be a calculated risk. You got to see from the beginning the plus and minuses of what you're doing. Every business has some risk. And if you don't take that risk, if you don't take a calculated risk, you are not going to move forward. A lot of times people get to an age when they're in that comfort zone. And now you say, okay, you want to start something new. Then they'll say, oh, but I have 2 kids at home. I got to worry about their college. I got to do this. So you never take that step. You have to take certain amount of risk. And failures happen. That's not there's no business where you will be 100% successful. You will fail. But just learn from it, and you have to keep going forward. If the first brick wall you hit and you just say, oh, I'm done, you're not going to go anywhere. So risks are there, but the rewards are, not only financial rewards, but the fact that you have achieved something that you're really passionate about. That's even a bigger achievement, satisfaction. Money will happen.
I think Chandrashbai's connection dropped out again. Thank you. Raman Uncle, if you have any questions.
How do you decide who to do business with? What do you look in a person that you want to have a relationship with? And it's very important for us to know what skills you would use to judge people.
Well, that's probably one of the key issues. And whenever I've had setbacks is because I didn't do enough background check on a person. And again, if the person is of high integrity, things win-win, eventually you will succeed, right? I mean, a successful person always finds a way to become successful, and your success is measured by the people that you surround yourself with. And again, if I'm talking about a company, I would say for a company, you hire slowly, you make sure that you've done enough background check. But if you find that you made a mistake, fire fast. So hire slowly, fire fast. Similarly, in a business venture, if you've gotten into a bad partnership, terminate it quickly. Of course, as a venture capitalist, you tend to be passionate about the business you've invested in, but it is smarter to cut your losses early. If you know you're not going anywhere, you need to just say, okay, made a mistake, move on. You can't keep hoping that things will change if the road is such that it's not going to go forward. So
if anyone has any other questions, I would like to sort of recap because we are coming right on top of the hour.
Yeah, I actually have one last question, Dr. Dinesh Pai. How do you stay not just motivated, but how do you learn and grow? Where do you find your inspiration? Is it usually reading books? Is it something else? Is it people around you? Now that I'm sure you have a very solid team around you that bring different problems to your attention, and then you kind of do something about it. But how do you learn and grow, and how do you recommend the audience? How should they continue doing that?
So obviously, reading and is you have to read, right? You got to be up to speed on what's going on. But just a small example, I've invested in a company in the laparoscopy field, and Pradeep Bhai will appreciate this. The current laparoscopic equipment is 400,000. We have reduced that to about less than 20,000. Now,
Wow.
it's a single-use equipment. But I had to learn a lot about laparoscopy. I had to learn a lot about, getting the right kind of pictures, because part of laparoscopic surgery, you get an image. You need a 1080p image, because 720p image is great, but once you tell a surgeon, I have a 1080p, I mean a 720p, it may not make any difference in the looks, but the surgeon will say, forget it, you're behind the curve. So learning all what the surgeons are thinking, what the markets are thinking, you got to learn that, and that's learning by reading, by meeting with your fellow board members or your team that has developed the product. So constant reading, constant learning, you have to do it.
Who has hard,
It's really helpful. Thank you.
hard work? Focus.
Yeah, Mr. Mumbai.
We have another
So,
question.
on behalf of Nancy Patel, our Lewa Patidar Samaj president, who could not be with us because she is already engaged in one of our family wedding ceremonies or events that is taking place, what I would like to at this time is thank Dr. Kansagra, Darshan, Jay, and the family for contributing so much to the community through Joy Academy. And it is such valuable knowledge and information that we all get, and that too at no charge. So I would like to sort of put in a pitch in here to say, we need all your support for Joy Academy. It's not just a few of us that can make it successful, but the more people we attend these kind of sessions, the more successful it will become. And it is philanthropic work on part of Dr. Kansagra that he gave at his 70th birthday. Bottom line, Dr. Dinesh Patel is a cornerstone of Utah's life sciences industry, and his recognition speaks volumes about his passion and achievements. He is a member of our extended community of Indian American community from Africa as well. He makes us all proud with his humility through service to those that are in need. No words can express our gratitude for sparing his valuable time with us today. And I am certain someone, including me, have learned something from him today. And thank you very much, Doctor. I'll hand over to Darshan.
Yes, thank you, Ramananko. Yes, I would also like to thank Dinesh Uncle for taking his valuable time and sharing his passion, his business, his philanthropic activities that he has done and he keeps on doing and giving back to the community. I would also like to thank Gujarati Samaj of Utah, Lewa Patidar Samaj of USA, and of course my father, Dr. Pradeep Kansagra, the founder of the Joy Academy, to give us this opportunity at our age that we are able to give back to the community. So thank you everyone for attending, and we look forward to. Yes.
One last comment is Dr. Dinesh Pai, I am also one of the angel investors in startups in technology when it comes to hospitality industry. So I want you to know that I personally learned something today from you that I will be using as well to analyze companies when I decide to invest in some.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you very much for the invitation and, for what all that you are doing. And again, I hope, I'm sure Joy Academy will continue to grow. And yeah, it's a great opportunity to share with everybody. And a parting thought is, there's never a right time to start a company. Whenever you're ready, take a jump, because if you don't try, you will never know whether you are going to be successful or not. So I always say, when you're ready, just go do it. There are lots of opportunity, and without trying, you will not find out. Thank you.
Our Samaj Flame, Nancy Ben, is here. She just took a break from the wedding. I know she's walking around and talking to us. Nancy, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Dinesh Bhai, for coming on to inspire people not to give up on their goals, and that if everyone tries and are disciplined, I feel like that we can all achieve what we need to. I'm sorry I missed most of the session because obviously I'm at a wedding, but I really wanted to come in and tell people what I read about you is amazing, and we hope a lot of our people were inspired. And I thank obviously Joy Academy for bringing on such a caliber like you, especially Dr. Kansagra, Darshan, and of course Raman Uncle. And I'm sure he did a fantastic job. But we just all appreciate it, and I hope somebody, at least one person, took back something and can change and make sure that they can follow and be disciplined, set their goals, and be successful.
I would like to close with a quote from the mother of Sri Aurobindo Ashram. What she said is, "Let us keep flaming in our heart the fire of progress, higher and higher. Let us never be satisfied with what is been accomplished."
Thank you. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Very